let me check on a few things here. A little bit late this week. Yeah, Streamlabs was not cooperating. Okay, I am showing that I'm live in both places, and got some people watching, so let's go ahead and get started. Ooh, as soon as I find my mouse, there we go. Hello, and welcome to this week's episode of Bob's Live, our weekly show right here on the internet. And, well, last week you would have missed me because of the flooding. So, in an effort to not get stranded away from home, I had to leave early last week to go rescue my wife, and then we drove through a tour of the back roads of southern Mason County to get back home. So that was an interesting week as far as needing to detour out around to get to and from work. So yeah, last week we didn't have an episode because of that. This week I wanted to take a look at a couple different things. So first of all, it's been a couple weeks since we've been out in the greenhouse to see what we have going on out there. And also, hey, the weather is starting to change. So I don't know if you guys were outside today, but it is beautiful out right now. And along those lines, over on our website, we have this month's gardening almanac. So I took a break from posting the almanac during the winter because, hey, it's the middle of winter time. You can't exactly get outside and garden. But now with the weather warming up, it's time to head out and get our hands dirty with gardening. So every month during the growing season, we post an almanac. And it is according to the moon. So whatever the current moon phase is, that dictates the almanac. And well, you can find it over on our website. If I jump back to the home page here, if we scroll down, there is a section here called Uncle Jim's Almanac. And if you click on that, it brings up every month. So we're currently in March. And let me jump back to the main camera here. And well, that is the almanac. You can find it also on our Facebook page. I post it there. But also, anytime there's a change in the almanac, if you follow us on Twitter, we tweet out on those days. So that's a good way to stay up to date with the almanac, is to give us a follow over on Twitter. And of course, you can find us at Bob's Market in most places. So on Facebook, Twitter, um, Instagram, and LinkedIn, we're at Bob's Market. Bob's Market was already taken, believe it or not, on YouTube. So we're something like Bob's Market Greenhouse on YouTube. But if you search for us on YouTube, chances are you'll find us. So we're pretty easy to find there also. So, hey, if you're watching us right now on YouTube, because we're streaming there, make sure you hit that subscribe button and also the little bell icon so that way you can get notified every time that we go live. And, well, I kind of got a little sidetracked there, but let's head out to the greenhouse and see what's happening because we've got stuff blooming out there, but we're also in the middle of this big construction project. So let's take a look at the construction also. Today I'm down here at our River Range location where we finally have some blooms to show you. So behind me we have some hanging baskets. And look at those blooms. A few weeks ago, these pansies were just starting to bloom, and now they're in full bloom, and we're starting to ship them out. I'm here at our Uptown construction site, and as you can see above, we have the shade cloth installed. So this shade cloth, it'll be motorized, and it can open and close automatically as the lighting needs dictate when we're growing different crops in here. Also, over my head here, we're starting to install heaters. So this greenhouse, it'll have heated floors. So here's the tubes for the heated floors. And I've showed those in previous videos here on Bob's Live. But we'll also have these forced air heaters that'll help supplement the heating. Overhead, you can also see the brackets right here for the watering booms. So once those are installed, the irrigation system, the watering booms, will ride on rails that'll set in those brackets. Alright, so that is a quick look at what's happening out in the greenhouse. And yeah, we've got some big changes happening here, both in blooms that are starting to appear, but also in the construction project. It's starting to look a lot more like a greenhouse. I know early on doing the construction updates, especially in the wintertime, it just looked like a bunch of ice and mud. But it's at that point now where it's really starting to take shape. Okay, so for this week's kind of feature topic, I wanted to talk about pruning fruit trees because my apple tree needed a prune. And a few weeks ago, when we had the ice storm and I did the broadcast from home, we took a look at that tree. And it took some damage during the ice storm, so I needed to address that also. And I thought this weekend would have been a great time to do that, and I went out to do it, and it was extremely windy. So the audio was basically just destroyed by the wind. So I'm going to attempt something that I've never done before, and this will probably most likely turn out to be a train wreck. But I'm going to attempt to do kind of a live voiceover with this next video. So I'm going to have to kind of turn my noggin sideways to watch this, but you'll be able to see me down in the corner. But let's talk about pruning fruit trees and kind of doing a little bit of damage assessment and recovery from this ice storm that we had. So let's take a look at that. As soon as I find it here on the screen. There we go. Okay, so yeah, during the live episode, this apple tree was completely covered in ice. And like I said during the episode, you really don't want to mess with a tree when it's covered in ice. And yeah, I'm just pointing out here that, yes, it was really windy. Okay, so here's some of the damage from the ice storm. I've got some snapped branches, and there's also some problems, like these two branches are crossing over each other. Those are obvious things to fix whenever you're pruning. There's a branch that's just completely snapped off. So what I'm going to do in this first pass is kind of the large cuts. I want to get rid of those problem areas. So this is what I'm shooting for with this early growth. You want to form kind of a nice round shape, but you want to kind of branch off like that over the years. So here in this first pass, I'm just cutting off any problems. And that previous clip, that was just showing an up-close shot of where to make a cut. You want to do it right down at the base of the limb, but not really down below that collar that kind of sticks out. So as I said, in this first pass, I'm just cutting out all the problems. So anything that crosses over another limb, you want to get rid of if they're actually touching and rubbing. Also, anything that grows back toward the center of the tree, you want to remove. And then anything that's growing in the same plane with another limb that's relatively close to each other. You kind of have to think ahead to what this tree is going to look like when it's loaded down with fruit. So think of it loaded down and kind of hanging down, and how those limbs are going to interact with each other, whether you'll end up with fruit potentially bumping into a limb. That's kind of what you want to think about. And especially with a young tree like this, you're really setting up the foundation for later growth. These two little suckers down here at the bottom of the tree, they don't have any useful purpose, so just lop those right off. So what I'm doing with this tree next is cutting off the leaders, so the very tips of the branches. So this is sort of what I'm going for with the early growth of the tree. So we're cutting off the leaders, but we're leaving a bud that's on the bottom, so leaving a bud that's down the bottom of the limb. And that allows for that kind of stair-step growth as it continues to grow. So here you can see me just kind of pruning those leaders back. And that also helps once it starts getting fruit on it, once it gets older. That helps with managing the weight and how much it's going to bend over. And if you look at the height of this tree, I've let it kind of get out of hand over the last couple of years as far as the height. So you'll see me take care of that with cutting back the central leader of the tree. Of course, a new leader will branch out of the top of it. But yeah, I want to take care of that and cut it back, or else I'll basically be growing a telephone pole for an apple tree. Now, this is a cherry tree that I planted last year, and you can see it got absolutely destroyed by the ice storm. It was completely laying over. And it stood back up, but it took some heavy damage. I mean, it's got some peeling bark. There's a big old hunk of bark missing right there on the one limb that looked pretty nice on the tree. So this poor little guy I'm probably going to have to replace. I'll let it go just to see if some leaves sprout out on it. I might be surprised and it might recover, but chances are I don't think it's going to make it. Even after the ice melted, you can see there it's still got a pretty good bend to it. So, yeah. And, well, that is that. Does anybody have any questions? I'm looking at the comments and I don't see any questions about pruning fruit trees. If you head over to our blog, last year I did a more in-depth pruning video when there wasn't like 15-mile-an-hour winds, and talked a little bit more in depth about pruning. So you can go check out that video. It's also over on our YouTube channel. And that'll kind of help give you a guide for pruning, especially when it comes to young trees like this. They're the ones that's kind of tricky to prune. Because with pruning I'm getting tongue-tied. With pruning a young tree, you're really setting up that growth and kind of creating a foundation that's, going to follow that tree throughout the 10, 15, 20, however long that you have it. Average lifespan for an apple tree like that, you're looking for about anywhere from 15 to 30 years of good producing growth for it. So, yeah, A Carpenter over on YouTube is saying, very informative, not a train wreck at all. So, yeah, maybe I should do all my videos like that, just a live voiceover. It kind of constrains me to a time limit, because, yeah, right now, I'm starting to ramble. So, well, before I go, once again, you can find Bob's Market over on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, YouTube, LinkedIn. I don't have it on here, but we're also over on TikTok now at Bob's Market. And if you check it out, I was printing up labels yesterday and kind of bored and did a short video about that on TikTok. And so far, it's our most popular video ever. So, I don't know. A weird video of a label maker is our most popular. Okay, so with that, I'll leave you and say, until next time, keep growing.